They say time heals all wounds. Whoever said that clearly never had their heart served to them on a platter with a side of betrayal and a garnish of public humiliation. My name is Kevin Martinez, and 6 months ago, I thought I understood the concept of trust. Turns out, trust is like a good Wi-Fi connection. It works great until it doesn't, and then you're left wondering why you ever believed in it in the first place. You're probably wondering why I'm here, spilling my guts like some discount therapy session. Well, stick around, because by the end of this tale, you'll either be thoroughly entertained or slightly concerned for my mental health. Possibly both. And honestly, I'm okay with that. Let me paint you a picture of domestic bliss, circa 6 months ago. And picture this: Kevin Martinez, 28, marketing coordinator by day, Netflix binge watcher by night, living in what he thought was a fairy tale relationship. The princess in question? Sarah James, 26, graphic designer, amateur yoga enthusiast, and, as I would later discover, part-time professional liar. We'd been together for 2.5 years. I know, not quite the epic 3-year milestone that really screams commitment, but close enough that I'd started looking at engagement rings online. Yes, I was that guy. The one who bookmarked Tiffany pages and cleared his browser history afterward because he was paranoid about targeted ads ruining the surprise. Here's a fun fact about me. I'm what you might call thorough. Some would say obsessive, but I prefer detail-oriented. I notice things, like how Sarah suddenly started working late on Tuesdays and Thursdays, how she developed a sudden interest in CrossFit. You know, that thing she used to call exercise for people who hate themselves. How her phone was now permanently face down and password protected like she was guarding state secrets. But love makes you stupid, doesn't it? It's like alcohol for your brain, except instead of liquid courage, you get liquid denial. Every red flag looks like a festive decoration when you're wearing rose-colored glasses. The revelation came on a Wednesday, not a Tuesday, which would have been poetic since that was one of her late work nights. No, it was a perfectly ordinary Wednesday, the kind of day that should have been memorable only for its complete lack of memorability. I'd left work early with a migraine, the kind that makes you question whether someone is using your skull as a xylophone. All I wanted was to go home, pop some ibuprofen, and lie in a dark room until my brain stopped trying to escape through my eyeballs. I walked into our shared apartment. Yes, we lived together, which in hindsight was probably mistake number 1 in a long line of romantic miscalculations, and immediately knew something was off. Sarah's yoga mat was out, but she was supposed to be at work until 6. Her water bottle was on the counter, still cold, and there was this smell, cologne, not mine, unless I developed some form of olfactory split personality disorder. That's when I heard it, the unmistakable sound of 2 people who were definitely not doing yoga. Well, not the kind you do in a studio anyway. I stood there for what felt like an hour, but was probably 30 seconds, my migraine suddenly the least of my problems. Part of me wanted to turn around and leave, pretend I'd never come home early, go sit in my car until 6 and then walk in like nothing had happened. But that would have required more emotional maturity than I possessed at that particular moment. Instead, I did what any reasonable person would do. I grabbed my phone and started recording. Don't judge me. In the digital age, documentation is everything. Besides, I had a feeling I was going to need evidence for what came next. I crept closer to the bedroom door, which was helpfully ajar. Apparently, they weren't too concerned about operational security. Through the gap, I could see Sarah and Brian. Of course it was Brian, her CrossFit trainer, the one she'd mentioned exactly 3 times in casual conversation, always with that particular tone women use when they're trying to sound completely uninterested in someone they're absolutely interested in. Brian, with his perfectly sculpted abs and his motivational quotes about pushing through barriers and achieving your personal best. Apparently, Sarah had taken that advice to heart. I watched for about 10 seconds, long enough to confirm what I already knew, but short enough to preserve what remained of my dignity and sanity. Then I quietly backed away, stopped recording, and sat down at the kitchen table to contemplate my next move. Here's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't hit you all at once like a freight train. It's more like being slowly lowered into boiling water. First comes the disbelief, then the anger, then the weird analytical phase where you start dissecting every interaction from the past 6 months, like you're preparing for a doctoral thesis in relationship failure. I sat there for 20 minutes, listening to the soundtrack of my relationship's demise, and realized something. I wasn't even surprised. Disappointed? Absolutely. Hurt? Like someone had used my heart as a piñata. But surprised? Not really. The signs had been there for weeks. I'd just been too invested in the fantasy to acknowledge the reality. They finished their workout, and I heard the shower turn on. Then I heard Brian say something about meeting again Friday, and Sarah giggling like a teenager who'd just been asked to prom. It was nauseating, really. The whole thing had the charm of a badly written soap opera. Brian left through the front door, walking past me like I was part of the furniture. He nodded, actually nodded, like we were bros who'd just shared a beer instead of, well, let's not go there. Sarah emerged from the bedroom 15 minutes later, towel wrapped around her head, looking relaxed and glowing in that post-exercise way. She saw me sitting at the table and jumped like I'd materialized out of thin air. "Kevin, you're home early. I thought you were working late tonight." The audacity was almost impressive. Here I was, sitting in my own kitchen, and she was acting like I was the one who was out of place. "Migraine," I said simply. "Decided to come home and rest." She nodded sympathetically, walking over to kiss my forehead. Poor baby. "Want me to make you some tea?" The Oscar goes to Sarah James for her performance in Concerned Girlfriend covering up Afternoon Delight. "That's okay," I said. "I think I'll just lie down for a while." "Good idea. I'll keep it quiet." I went to the bedroom, our bedroom, where the sheets were still warm and there was a mysterious extra towel on the floor, and lay down. But I didn't sleep. Instead, I stared at the ceiling and planned. You see, I'm not a confrontational person by nature. I don't throw dishes or scream or make grand dramatic gestures. I'm more of a strategic thinker. Some might say I'm petty. I prefer creatively vindictive. Over the next few days, I observed. I documented. I became a detective in my own life, gathering evidence like I was building a case for court. Which, in a way, I was. The court of public opinion. Sarah's patterns became clear pretty quickly. Tuesday and Thursday work meetings were actually Brian meetings. The new gym membership she'd gotten for her health was actually so she could see him without arousing suspicion. The sudden interest in protein smoothies and athletic wear, all part of her new lifestyle as a cheating fitness enthusiast. But here's where it gets interesting. I didn't confront her, not yet. Instead, I started planning something much more comprehensive. You know what they say about revenge being a dish best served cold? Well, I decided to serve mine with a side of public humiliation and a garnish of social media exposure. First, I created a fake Instagram account. Nothing too obvious, just Fitness Couple 2024 with a generic gym photo as the profile picture. Then I started following Sarah, Brian, all their friends, and most importantly, their gym. Phase 2. I started documenting their relationship, not in a creepy stalker way. I'm not a monster, just publicly available information. Their check-ins at restaurants, their workout posts, the increasingly flirty comments they were leaving on each other's photos. It was like watching a rom-com, except I was paying for the popcorn and they were the ones enjoying the show. The beautiful thing about social media is that people document their own crimes. Sarah was posting photos of her amazing workout sessions with Brian, talking about how he was helping her reach her goals. Brian was commenting with fire emojis and flexing bicep symbols. It was all very subtle and professional if you ignored the obvious sexual tension radiating through the screen. Meanwhile, at home, Sarah was playing the part of the loving girlfriend to perfection. She'd come home from her late work sessions and tell me about her boring day, her difficult clients, her upcoming deadlines. She'd cuddle up next to me on the couch and ask about my day, looking me in the eyes with such convincing sincerity that I almost started to question what I'd seen. Almost. But every Tuesday and Thursday, she'd come home glowing, relaxed, and just a little too eager to jump in the shower. And every Wednesday and Friday, she'd be distracted, checking her phone constantly, smiling at messages she'd quickly hide when I walked into the room. It was actually kind of fascinating from an anthropological perspective. I was witnessing the mating rituals of the modern cheater in their natural habitat. 3 weeks into my surveillance operation, I struck gold. Sarah had forgotten to log out of her Instagram account on our shared iPad. You know, the one we used for Netflix and online shopping, which was always just lying around the living room. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I'm not exactly ashamed of it either. I scrolled through her DMs. Oh, the poetry of modern romance. The screenshots I took could have been published as a collection titled Thirst Traps and Broken Hearts, a Digital Love Story. Brian was quite the wordsmith, with classics like "Can't wait to see you tomorrow" and "Your body is incredible, baby." Sarah, not to be outdone, responded with gems like "You make me feel things Kevin never could," and "I wish we didn't have to sneak around." That last one was particularly ironic, considering they were about as subtle as a marching band at a funeral. But the real masterpiece was the photo Sarah had sent him the night before, a mirror selfie in lingerie I'd bought her for Valentine's Day. The caption? "For your eyes only." That's when I knew it was time to move to Phase 3. I spent the next weekend creating what I like to call the Sarah and Brian experience, a comprehensive digital scrapbook of their relationship, complete with timeline, screenshots, and my own personal commentary. Think PowerPoint presentation meets relationship autopsy. The beauty of social media is that once something is out there, it takes on a life of its own, like a virus, but for drama. I waited until the following Tuesday, one of their regular workout days. Sarah left for her late work session at 5:30, dressed in her cutest athletic wear. I gave her an hour to get settled into her routine. Then I launched my masterpiece. First, I posted the presentation to my own social media accounts: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, even LinkedIn, because why not make it professional? The caption was simple: "When your girlfriend of 2.5 years decides to explore new workout routines. A timeline of trust, betrayal, and really bad OPSEC. Thread below." Then I tagged everyone: Sarah, Brian, their gym, our mutual friends, Sarah's coworkers, her family, my family, basically anyone who'd ever liked one of our couple photos or commented "cute couple" on our anniversary posts. But I didn't stop there. Oh no, that would have been too easy. I also sent the presentation directly to the gym's management with a note about their trainers' extracurricular activities with clients. I posted it in the local community Facebook groups where Sarah was active. I even sent it to Brian's other social media followers with a friendly heads up about his personalized training methods. Then I sat back and watched the digital wildfire spread. The first notification came within 5 minutes, then another. Then my phone started buzzing so fast it sounded like an angry bee. Comments, messages, shares, reactions. It was like watching a real-time social experiment in public shaming. The screenshots started rolling in from friends who were forwarding me Sarah's panicked messages. "It's not what it looks like. Kevin is having a mental breakdown. Don't believe everything you see online." Classic damage control. Unfortunately for her, I'd been thorough in my documentation. Screenshots don't lie, and timestamps don't either. Brian, to his credit, tried the direct approach. He called me. "Dude, what the hell?" he said when I answered. "This is insane." "Is it?" I asked conversationally. "Because from where I'm sitting, it seems pretty rational. You sleep with my girlfriend. I let people know about it. Cause and effect. You can't just post people's private messages online. That's illegal." "Actually," I said, because I'd done my research, "in this state, as long as I'm a party to the communication or have legitimate access to the account, it's perfectly legal. Thanks for your concern about my legal welfare, though. Really shows what a caring guy you are." He hung up on me. Some people have no appreciation for civil discourse. Sarah came home 2 hours early, bursting through the door like the place was on fire, which, metaphorically speaking, it was. "Kevin," she screamed, "what have you done?" I looked up from my laptop, where I was watching the engagement metrics on my posts with the fascination of a social media analyst studying viral content. "Oh, hey, babe," I said casually. "How was work? You're home early." Her face was red, tears streaming down her cheeks, and she was shaking with what I could only assume was rage mixed with panic. "You posted our private business online. You humiliated me. You ruined my life." "I posted the truth," I corrected. "I thought people should know what kind of person they're dealing with. You know, public service announcement." "You're sick!" she shouted. "This is psychotic behavior." I considered this for a moment. You know what's psychotic? Cheating on your boyfriend for months while living in his apartment, using his Netflix account, and eating food he paid for. That's like advanced level sociopathy. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "I was going to tell you." "When? At our wedding?" "Hey, honey, before we exchange vows, there's something you should know. We're not even engaged." "Yeah, well, there's a ring in my sock drawer that says otherwise, or there was. I returned it yesterday. Got a full refund, too. Turns out, girlfriend turned out to be cheating is a valid reason for return at most jewelry stores. Who knew?" That stopped her cold. For a moment, the only sound was my phone buzzing with new notifications. You bought me a ring?" Past tense, Sarah. I bought you a ring. Then you decided Brian's biceps were more interesting than our future together. She collapsed onto the couch, crying in earnest now. I'm so sorry, Kevin. I never meant for this to happen. Which part? The cheating or getting caught? Both. Neither. I don't know. She looked up at me, mascara streaking down her face. Can you take it down, please? I'll do anything. Anything? I pretended to consider this. Can you uncheat on me? Can you unsend those photos to Brian? Can you unlie to me for the past 3 months? She didn't answer, which was answer enough. Here's the thing, Sarah, I continued. You made your choice. You chose Brian over me, sneaking around over honesty, Instagram thirst traps over basic human decency. I'm just making sure everyone else knows what choice you made. My phone rang. Sarah's mom. Don't answer that, Sarah pleaded. I answered it. Kevin, honey, Mrs. James's voice was tight with concern. I just saw... Are you okay? I'm fine, Mrs. James. Thank you for asking. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. Is it true about Sarah and that trainer? I looked at Sarah, who was shaking her head frantically. Yes, ma'am. I'm afraid it is. There was a long pause. Then, I'm so sorry, Kevin. You didn't deserve this. Thank you. That means a lot. After I hung up, Sarah was staring at me with something between horror and admiration. You told my mother? I didn't tell your mother anything. Your actions told your mother. I just confirmed what she saw with her own eyes. The next few hours were a blur of phone calls, text messages, and social media chaos. Friends calling to check on me, family members expressing outrage on my behalf, acquaintances sliding into my DMs with everything from sympathy to gossip to offers to set me up with their single friends. Sarah tried damage control, posting her own statement about privacy violations and one-sided stories, but the internet had already made up its mind. The court of public opinion had delivered its verdict, and it was not in her favor. Brian, meanwhile, had apparently been fired from the gym, something about unprofessional conduct with clients and violation of workplace ethics policies. He'd also been dropped by several of his other clients, who didn't appreciate being associated with the drama. By midnight, Sarah had packed her bags and left to stay with a friend. The last thing she said to me was, I hope you're happy. I considered the question seriously. Was I happy? Not exactly. Satisfied? Definitely. There's something deeply cathartic about seeing justice served, even if you have to serve it yourself. But as I sat alone in what was now just my apartment, scrolling through the hundreds of comments and messages, I started to feel something unexpected. Emptiness. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't regretting what I'd done. Sarah had made her choices, and choices have consequences. But revenge, I was discovering, is a lot like junk food. It tastes great going down, but afterward, you just feel kind of sick and hollow. The next morning, I woke up to find that my posts had been shared thousands of times. I was internet famous, in that peculiar modern way where everyone knows your business but nobody knows your name. Sarah and Brian was trending locally, and someone had made a TikTok about it that had gone viral. I'd become a cautionary tale, a meme, a symbol of digital age revenge. It was surreal. 3 days later, Sarah texted me from a number I didn't recognize. Can we talk? I almost said no. The rational part of my brain was screaming that nothing good could come from reopening this particular wound. But curiosity won out. What about? I replied. I want to apologize, really apologize, face to face. We met at a diner across town, neutral territory, away from our usual haunts. She looked terrible, which I'll admit gave me a small, petty surge of satisfaction. Thank you for agreeing to see me, she said when I sat down across from her. I figured I owed you that much. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. You don't owe me anything, Kevin. I'm the one who owes you. We ordered coffee and sat in awkward silence for a few minutes. I lost my job, she said finally. I raised an eyebrow. Because of the posts? Partly. My boss said the drama was disrupting the workplace environment. Apparently, having your personal life become internet famous isn't great for client relations. I felt a flicker of something that might have been guilt, but I pushed it down. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? I considered the question honestly. A little. I didn't want you to lose your job. I just wanted people to know who you really are. And who am I, Kevin? In your expert opinion? There was an edge to her voice, a challenge. She was trying to pick a fight, probably because anger was easier to deal with than shame. You're someone who makes choices based on what feels good in the moment, without considering the consequences for other people, I said. You're someone who lies to avoid uncomfortable conversations. You're someone who values excitement over stability, novelty over loyalty. She stared at me for a long moment. "You're not wrong," she said quietly. "That's the part that hurts the most. You're not wrong." This wasn't the conversation I'd expected to have. "I've been seeing a therapist," she continued, "since everything happened. She says I have abandonment issues, that I sabotage relationships when they get too serious because I'm afraid of being left behind." "So you leave first?" "Something like that." She stirred her coffee absently. "It doesn't excuse what I did to you, but maybe it explains it." I didn't know what to say to that. In all my planning and plotting, I'd never considered that there might be actual reasons behind her betrayal. Not excuses, but explanations. "Brian and I aren't together anymore," she said suddenly. I figured as much. He said the whole thing was too messy, too public. He couldn't handle the attention. There was bitter irony in that. She'd cheated for excitement and adventure, only to be abandoned when things got complicated. "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it. "No, you're not." She was right. I wasn't sorry they'd broken up, but I was sorry she was hurting, which was more complicated than I wanted to deal with. "What happens now?" I asked. She shrugged. "I'm moving back home with my parents, starting over, I guess. Looking for a new job, trying to rebuild my reputation. That's probably for the best." "Is it?" "I'm 26 years old, Kevin. I'm moving back into my childhood bedroom because I destroyed my adult life over a guy with nice abs and commitment issues." When she put it like that, it did sound pretty pathetic. "For what it's worth," she said, "you were the best relationship I ever had. The most stable, the most honest, the most real. And I threw it away because I was too immature to appreciate it." I didn't know how to respond to that either. "I know you probably hate me," she continued, "and I understand why. But I want you to know that I loved you. Maybe not well, maybe not enough, but I did love you." "I know," I said, surprising myself. "That's what made it hurt so much." She nodded, tears starting again. "I'm going to delete all my social media accounts, start fresh somewhere else, try to become someone I can actually respect." "That sounds like a good plan." She stood up, leaving money on the table for her untouched coffee. "I hope you find someone who deserves you, Kevin, someone who's smart enough not to screw it up." After she left, I sat alone in the diner, thinking about the past few months. The betrayal, the investigation, the revenge, the aftermath. It felt like a lifetime had passed since that Wednesday when I came home with a migraine and discovered my girlfriend was cheating on me. Had it been worth it? I honestly wasn't sure. The satisfaction of exposing her had faded, leaving behind something more complex. I'd gotten my revenge, but at what cost? Sarah had lost her job, her reputation, her relationship with Brian, and probably several friendships. I'd become known as that guy who aired his dirty laundry online. Not exactly the legacy I'd been aiming for. Don't get me wrong, I still think she deserved consequences for her actions. Cheating isn't a victimless crime, and the betrayal of trust she'd committed was real and hurtful. But sitting there in that diner, watching her walk away broken and defeated, I wondered if maybe I'd gone too far. The truth is, revenge is complicated. It's not the clean, satisfying resolution they show you in movies. It's messy and morally ambiguous and leaves everyone feeling a little bit dirty. But here's what I learned. Sometimes the most important lesson isn't about the other person. Sometimes it's about yourself. Sarah taught me that I was capable of calculating systematic vengeance when pushed far enough. She showed me that I could be ruthless when betrayed. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, well, I'm still figuring that out. 6 months later, I'm in a better place. I've started dating again. Nothing serious yet, but I'm open to possibilities. I've learned to trust again, though perhaps not as easily as before. And I've accepted that sometimes relationships end not with a bang or a whimper, but with a viral social media post that teaches everyone involved more about themselves than they really wanted to know. So that's my story. Not a fairy tale, not a cautionary tale, just a tale of love and betrayal and revenge and consequence, and the strange, messy reality of modern relationships. If there's a moral to this story, it's probably this. Actions have consequences, but so do reactions. Be careful what you put out into the world, because once it's there, you can't take it back. And maybe, just maybe, the best revenge isn't getting even. It's getting better. But sometimes getting even feels pretty good too.